So, welcome to the safeguarding training for Group A. My name is Paul Jones and I'm an independent social worker. I specialise in safeguarding training as I work with children, young people and their families. You have been identified as a person that fits into Group A of the National Safeguarding Training Learning and Development Standards produced by Social Care Wales. If you think you should be in another group, you will need to complete the training relevant to your role, especially if you have regular and direct contact with adults and children as part of your role. This presentation will be discussing abuse, and this may upset you. You may choose to pause the video and start again later on. If after the training you need to speak to someone, you can contact Grwp Cynefin or Gorwel, Samaritans, Mind or the Live Fear Free helpline. After watching this video, you'll be able to know what the term safeguarding means, know what to look out for, know who to report abuse to, have a basic understanding of the laws concerning safeguarding, and recognise that you have a duty to report abuse, harm and neglect. Whatever your role is, safeguarding is everyone's responsibility. What does safeguarding mean? Safeguarding is about protecting children and adults from abuse, harm or neglect, and educating those around them to recognise the signs to prevent abuse, harm or neglect as much as possible. Regardless of whether we are young or old, we all have the right to live our own lives free from harm or fear, be treated with respect, make our own choices and decisions, and speak up for ourselves and be listened to. It's very important to remember that your actions in telling someone that you think abuse is happening could keep someone safe. So what does safeguarding mean for you? Whatever your role, you should work together for everyone's safety, use respectful language, be open and non-judgmental, be ready to listen and act, always be alert, and prevent harm as much as possible by early intervention. Here are some key aspects of the Social Services and Wellbeing Wales Act 2014. Voice and control, giving the individual a voice in their care and control over how they reach positive outcomes. Prevention and early intervention to prevent escalation of issues. Well-being of the individual to be promoted by all persons delivering functions under the Act. Co-production between the individual and agencies and across agencies and sectors. Co-producing services and solutions. Multi-agency, in this case, safeguarding is everyone's business. Principles of the Act, applying across all parts, including Part 7 of safeguarding. Who is the adult at risk? The adult at risk is 18 and over, is being abused or neglected, or there is risk that they will be, has care and support needs, and cannot keep themselves safe from abuse or neglect. Who is the child at risk? The child at risk is being abused, neglected or harmed, or maybe in the future, and has needs for care and support. We will now be looking at the 5 different categories of abuse. Physical abuse. Physical abuse means deliberately hurting a child or an adult. It can be a one-off incident or a series of incidents. Examples would be hitting, slapping, pushing, pinching, or burning. The signs and symptoms of physical abuse might be bruising that's inconsistent with the explanation, scratches or scrapes, especially around the neck, wrist or ankles, unexplained fracture, skin tears, bruises or burns, cowering or flinching, or trying to hide injuries. Sexual abuse occurs when the victim is involved in sexual activities or relationships to which they have not given consent, or which they do not fully understand, or if they are a child. Some examples of sexual abuse would be rape or sexual assault, indecent exposure, penetration or attempted penetration of intimate areas, sexual harassment, or forcing someone to watch sexual acts or pornography. Signs and symptoms of sexual abuse would be a change in usual behaviour, such as withdrawal, bedwetting, aggressiveness, and self-injury, inappropriate sexual behaviour or language, feelings of guilt or shame, refusing personal care, or disturbed sleep nightmares. Emotional or psychological abuse happens when a person's self-confidence is undermined by threats, humiliation, or degrading comments. Examples would be bullying, threats of harm or being abandoned, ignoring, shouting or swearing, controlling behaviour, threats and intimidation. Signs and symptoms of emotional and psychological abuse would be confusion and anxiety, signs of depression, sleep disturbances, changes in appetite, and loss of interest in socializing. Neglect. Neglect is a failure to meet a person's basic physical, emotional, social, and psychological needs, which is likely to have a negative impact on a person's health and well-being. It can be a result of intentional or non-intentional acts or failure to act. This includes not stopping behaviour that's harmful to them or others. It can be a one-off incident or a series of incidents. The signs and symptoms of neglect would be poor personal hygiene, failure to give medication, dehydration or weight loss, unkempt appearance or unsuitable clothing for the weather or situation, repeated or unexplained accidents. Financial abuse happens when someone uses another person's money or property inappropriately, for example, theft of items or money, pressure to give money or items, unexplained withdrawal of money, unusual interest from a third party in financial matters, and purchases that are unrelated to the individual's needs, such as a car or a holiday. The signs and symptoms of financial abuse would be not able to pay bills with no explanation, sudden withdrawal of money from accounts, things of value going missing, person managing finances is hard to get hold of or uncooperative, poor financial recording or monitoring in a care setting. So for further signs and symptoms, I recommend that you pause the video at this point, open up your camera on your phone and download the following QR codes. So the first QR code provides further information in regard to the signs and symptoms of abuse relevant to children at risk, and the second provides further information in regard to the signs and symptoms of abuse relevant to adults at risk. We are now moving on to consider other various forms of abuse. Domestic abuse. Any instance or pattern of incidents of controlling, coercive, or threatening behaviour, violence or abuse between those aged 16 years and over who are or have been intimate partners or family members, regardless of gender or sexuality. The following types of abuse may be included in domestic abuse: emotional, psychological, physical, sexual, financial, and neglect. Modern-day slavery is the severe exploitation of other people for personal or commercial gain. Modern slavery is all around us, but often just out of sight. From the outside, it can look like a normal job. Things like making our clothes, serving our food, picking our crops, working in factories, or working in houses as cooks, cleaners, or nannies. But these individuals face violence or threats be forced into huge debts, or have their passports taken away. Human trafficking is a form of slavery. It involves forcing children and adults to move in order for them to be exploited in some way, moving them to another place within one country or often another country, using threats, force, or deception to make them do something against their will, using them to make money or provide services for the traffickers. They may look underfed, be unwell or injured, or seem frightened. They may be unwilling to talk, or they may be living in overcrowded housing. Sexual exploitation is the coercion or manipulation of children or adults at risk into taking part in sexual activities. It is a form of sexual abuse involving an exchange of some form of payments that can include money, mobile phones, and other items such as drugs, alcohol, a place to stay, or protection or affection. Children or adults at risk are often unable to recognize the exploitative nature of these relationships and give consent. Forced marriage is any marriage where one or both people do not or cannot consent to the marriage and pressure or abuse is used. The pressure put on people to marry against their will can be physical, including threats, actual physical violence and sexual violence, or emotional and psychological, for example, when someone is made to feel like they're bringing shame on their family. Financial abuse, taking individuals' wage and not giving them any money, can also be a factor used to control individuals or force them to comply with the marriage. Female genital mutilation, FGM, is when the female genitals are deliberately cut, injured, or changed, but there's no medical reason to do so. It is also known as female circumcision or cutting, and by other terms, FGM is usually carried out on a young girls between infancy and age of 15, but most commonly before puberty starts. It's illegal in the UK and is recognised as child abuse. It's very painful and can seriously harm the health of women and girls. It can also cause long-term problems with sex, childbirth, and mental health. Hate crime. Hatred is a strong term that goes beyond simply causing offence or hostility. Hate crime is any criminal offence committed against a person or property that is motivated by the offender's hatred of someone because of their race, colour, ethnic origin, nationality or national origins, religion, gender or gender identity, sexual orientation or disability. Radicalisation. Radicalisation is a process by which an individual or group comes to adopt increasingly extreme political, social or religious ideas and aspirations that may place them or the public in danger if they act upon those beliefs. Local authorities have a duty to identify vulnerable individuals and families at risk of radicalisation from all forms of extremism. Institutional abuse can occur in any setting or in a person's home where the care is inflexible or degrading. It's characterised by a lack of personal choice, a lack of privacy, for example, staff walking unannounced into toilets, individuals dressed in other people's clothes, dirty or unkempt clothes, strong smell of urine, individuals' clothing or bedding is soiled, inappropriate or excessive sanctions or restraints, such as bed guards on every bed or removing phones for long periods of time, inappropriate or excessive use of medication, catheterization or enema, not providing enough supervision and support, and restricting educational or developmental opportunity. We need to be mindful of our own assumptions that might be very inaccurate. We might assume that categories of abuse such as county lines, modern-day slavery, and child sexual exploitation do not happen within our own rural communities in North Wales, and that they only happen in large cities. such as Cardiff, Liverpool and Manchester, we need to be aware that these categories of abuse do happen in North Wales, and therefore we need to be aware of what they are and be able to report it. If you're worried about someone being abused by any of those categories, you have a duty to report this to a designated safeguarding person of Grwp Cynefin. I recommend that you pause this video now and add their contact details to your mobile phone to keep for future reference in case you need them. If there's an immediate concerns about a child's or an adult's safety or a criminal offence has occurred, you should phone the police. Remember, your role is to report concerns. Your role is not to investigate abuse. What should you do when a child or an adult at risk tells you something, they are disclosing abuse to you? You need to stay calm, listen carefully, take it seriously, tell the child or the adult at risk that they have done the right thing in telling you, explain who you need to share the information with, your designated safeguarding person, follow your organisation's procedure, make accurate notes using the child or adult's risk's own words, and consult immediately on the same day with your designated safeguarding person. You shouldn't react strongly to a disclosure, for example saying how awful. You shouldn't stop someone who is speaking freely and interrupt them. You shouldn't jump into conclusions, especially about the abuser. Don't ask leading questions. Use your own words to describe events. You shouldn't investigate. We shouldn't promise confidentiality. We shouldn't deal with it alone, and we shouldn't contact the alleged abuser. For the next part of the presentation, I would ask you to pause the video and open the following QR code by opening your camera. This video involves two people sharing their experience of being concerned about someone. You have the plumber being concerned about a child and the neighbour being concerned about her elderly neighbour. On the next slide, I have questions for you to consider after watching this video. Please pause the video again and reflect on the following questions. Does the plumber see enough to report his concerns to his manager? If so, what does he see or feel that makes him concerned? Does the neighbour see enough to report her concerns to the police or social services? And if so, what does she see or feel that makes her concerned? Do you agree with that stance of "it's none of my business"? And consider what can happen if they choose not to report the child or the adult at risk in this video. Remember, if you see or hear something that causes you concern, you must always report to the designated safeguarding person. So when making a safeguarding report, you should make a report even if you do not have a lot of information, but if possible, focus on the signs and symptoms of a possible abuse or neglect. Be clear, include details of your concerns, and record the information. As part of this training, you'll need to have access to the Grwp Cynefin safeguarding policy. You will need to read this and be familiar with your duty to report abuse. Whistleblowing. Whistleblowing means that if an employee believes there is wrongdoing in the workplace, such as that abuse or neglect or a criminal offence has been committed, and this can be reported and the employee is protected. These are the references I've used to complete this presentation. Please remember, if you have been affected by this presentation in any way, you can contact any of these agencies and helplines for emotional support. So we have Samaritans, Gorwel, Mind Cymru and the Live Fear Free helpline. Thank you for listening and completing the exercises provided in this presentation. Please remember, if you have any doubts that anyone is being abused, please contact the Grwp Cynefin designated safeguarding person listed here again. Diolch yn fawr. Thank you.